Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you who have not met me yet, my name is Shelby Britt. Most of you, though, I have had in class over the last year, so I'm going to forego all the formal introduction and get right into the meat and potatoes of why we're here today. Right off the bat, I want to apologize. The air conditioning is out, so I realize it's a little warm in here, and we're going to try to get through this as quick as possible. The reason for the meeting is because although all of you are A&P mechanics, some of you are going into logistics as well as aviation administration. Both of those occupations rely very heavily on meetings to get business conducted. What we're going to be discussing today is the time-saving tips for conducting productive meetings. Now, understand, when it comes to meetings, there's two aspects of the meeting. You're either going to be the one conducting the meeting, or you're going to be one of the attendees. We're going to address both aspects today. The first question, if you're the one that's conducting the meeting, that you need to ask yourself is, should there even be a meeting? Just because you have the opportunity to be able to call a meeting doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best method for acquiring or disseminating information. You should always check to ensure that the information in question is not available from other sources first. You don't want to call a meeting and then find out that the information you needed was actually found in the company policy procedures handbook. That'd be a little ridiculous. Next, after you've decided that you do in fact need to conduct a meeting, then you need to make sure that the meeting produces the results that you need. If you cannot get those results, then you start to lose credibility with the individuals that you have attending the meeting. Once the decision is made that you're going to have a meeting, next comes the agenda. Your agenda serves as the outline for your meeting. It's the easiest way for individuals not familiar with creating agendas to get started is to begin with basically a point-form list of topics that are going to be discussed, and make sure the information is provided to attendees at least one day prior to the meeting beginning. To better increase these results, it's best if you can also provide the background information on the agenda items that's going to be discussed. If you're going to be talking about implementing a new procedure, list in your agenda what that procedure is and why you're wanting to implement it to begin with. Key point. This applies regardless of whether you are an attendee or the one calling the meeting. Review your attendee list. The first thing it says is ensure key personnel are included. What do we mean by key personnel? Well, to begin with, a meeting is going to be absolutely useless unless there is someone there available to fill the position of responsible party. What I mean by that, someone who has the authority to make a decision. You've got to be able to have that person in your meeting, or your meeting's going to be useless. Second, limit the number of attendees to 10. Now, the reason I suggest that and recommend that is because once you get over 10 attendees, the meeting starts to lose its productivity. Remember, the purpose of the meeting is to make decisions and get work done. When the number of attendees exceeds 10, consensus becomes much more difficult to attain, and the allotted time frame for the meeting begins to become extended, and basically everybody wants to have their own opportunity to be able to provide input. Your deadline or your stopping point for the meeting can get thrown out the window when you have more than 10 people, simply because of the number of people wanting to participate. Become familiar with all the attendees. In most cases, you'll probably know everyone who's going to be attending your meeting. However, there may be occasions where there are going to be individuals, especially if you are an attendee yourself and not the one calling the meeting, where you're going to have individuals in the room that you are not familiar with. If that is the case, then take the opportunity to be able to look through your company's organizational handbook, find out what you can about the other people that are attending the meeting. Maybe go to their LinkedIn page. Become familiar with them. It gives you a better insight as to where they're coming from and helps with your communications because you will know more about them than probably they will about you. Next, time is the key. It's going to go down the list. Show up on time, start on time, shorter is better, and 45 minutes is better than an hour. Show up on time is self-explanatory. If you don't show up on time, then how do you expect, or why would you expect anybody else to? Start on time? Well, you've got to start on time if you're planning on finishing on time. If you start on time, you establish a reputation of being able to conduct meetings, be thorough, and people will be less hesitant in the future to attend one. Shorter is better. Well, the big thing about a short meeting is, believe it or not, in most cases, a shorter meeting can accomplish just as much as one twice as long. How is that possible? When the meeting is actually listed as being having a shorter time span, then people tend to not run off on tangents. They become more directed, more focused on the issues before them, and they tend to get those issues addressed at a much faster pace. The part about 45 minutes is better than 1 hour. The reason for that is because the last 15 minutes, that extra 15 minutes is available, allows your attendees to accomplish other tasks. They can finish things such as filing meeting notes, inputting tasks of the meeting into their own task management system, check voicemail, return a call, grab a snack, or maybe even just take a break. Stay on task and avoid distractions. Avoid meeting creep. What do I mean by meeting creep? That's when you're sitting there and the agenda says you're going to discuss one area and somebody else wants to discuss something that has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the intent of the meeting. One of the easiest ways to derail a meeting and frustrate others is to discuss unrelated topics. Although an agenda will normally serve to avoid these areas, it is still your responsibility as the leader of the meeting to curb these topics for return at a later date or to be addressed at the end of the meeting should the time allow it. Acknowledge obstacles standing in the way of progress. Don't be afraid to tackle an issue head on. Just because the answer may not be simple, it doesn't justify ignoring the elephant in the room. For your meeting to be productive, these issues must be addressed and resolved. Hit them. Square on. Let everybody provide input. Get the thing resolved. Then you can move on and you're actually making progress. You're making discernible progress in your meeting. Be prepared. To begin with, understand the issues. It's your responsibility to take actions necessary to understand the issues being addressed in the meeting. You can utilize the agenda to have the opportunity to spend the time necessary to actively participate in the resolution of the issues being discussed. regardless of whether you are an attendee and you just want to offer productive input into the meeting itself, or you are the one conducting the meeting, a thorough understanding of the issues is imperative. Don't speak just to hear yourself. People have a tendency, especially when they're nervous, to just start talking. Don't do that. If you find yourself in a position where you feel you're unable to provide any useful input, perhaps you should just bow out of the meeting and explain the reasoning for your decision. What do I mean by that? When we're talking about don't just speak to hear yourself talk, as an attendee, there's going to be occasions where you're going to be asked to attend a meeting and you look over all the information, the agenda items, and you realize that you have nothing of value to add to that meeting. If that's the case and you go there, then all you're doing is just going to listen to yourself talk. Don't do it. Find out who's conducting the meeting, go to them, explain the situation, gracefully bow out of it, or you may find that they will provide additional information that makes your attendance productive. Think before you speak. Although this should go without saying, you should not say things that will undermine or antagonize other people. This doesn't mean that you should not stand your ground. Just remember that comments that may only take a matter of seconds to make can sometimes take what seems like an eternity to overcome. How many of us have found ourselves in that position? Yeah, a couple of you, at least once or twice, right? Okay. Be considerate. Don't multitask. Unless specifically asked for information that requires multitasking, this practice should be avoided during meetings. Not only is it distracting to others, it could also be perceived as disrespectful to the person speaking and to the other participants as well. If the meeting is unavoidably long, schedule breaks. If a meeting is going to be long, schedule breaks where participants can check their emails and phones. In today's connected world, people get very distracted when they feel that they've been out of touch for too long. This period can be as short as just a matter of a few minutes. When this occurs, people have been known to start sneakily texting and emailing under the desk. Even though they think they're hiding it, it doesn't work. Everybody sees it, and it's distracting to all concerned, and again, it shows disrespect to the person conducting the meeting. 3, end the meeting on time. Although this should go without saying, you should not say things that in the meeting on time. When you are sitting there and you realize that you are going to go over, a decision has to be made. Do you make an announcement to the group that it's going to be a few extra minutes and find a consensus to see if everybody's going to be able to go along with it? Or do you go ahead and just understand that the meeting's going to be cut short and you're going to have additional areas that have to be addressed at a later date? That's a decision that you have to make. In most cases, it's been my experience that if you start the meeting on time and you get in the habit of ending the meeting on time, then you will find the time to be able to get all the issues covered. Next, follow-up. Every attendee that walks away from a meeting should have a thorough understanding of the expectations that they are responsible for fulfilling. That means that you, as the conductor of the meeting, must be able to explain these responsibilities in such a way and assign the task so that people are held accountable and responsible for their actions. The assignment of the action items serve to promote accountability that is necessary to achieve results. If you don't do it, you're not going to get the results you're expecting. Inspect what you expect. I've often heard it said, one should not expect what they don't inspect. And this could be no more truer than in a case of promoting meeting results. In most cases, a simple phone call or short email is all that's necessary to make a good impression on others and to bring to light minor problems before they become major issues. If you're able to do that, you can expect the results that you intended to get when you intended to get them. Summary. Set the agenda. Put together your outline. This is your schedule. This is what you're going to cover. Review attendees. Know who's going to be there and make sure that there's always going to be a responsible party there that is capable and qualified to be able to ultimately make the decisions necessary. Establish a time limit. Make sure that you've noted how long your meeting is going to last, what time it begins, and what time it ends. Stay on task. Don't get distracted. Address the issues covered in the agenda and stay away from all the other areas all the other things that tend to come in out of left field. Avoid distractions. Don't let someone else hijack your meeting. What I mean by hijack your meeting, you're talking about production quotas and somebody else wants to talk about parking spaces. That parking spaces has nothing to do with your meeting. Stay away from them. Be prepared. Know what you need to cover. Make sure that you have the information available to put you in a position where you can provide knowledgeable, informed ideas and make yourself valuable to the meeting itself. Be considerate. Allow others to speak. Don't criticize. All the things, it's just like the old saying, the adage, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. The same thing applies here. Be considerate. Be nice to the people that are in your meeting, and they in turn will be nice back to you. Follow up. Make sure that you have taken the necessary notes that you need to be able to identify who is accepting responsibility for what and has laid out time frames necessary for you to be able to follow up with them, to get touch base on how they are progressing with their assigned task. Inspect expectations. Basically, it goes right along with follow-up. If you have a meeting on Monday, you're going to discuss the solutions in another meeting on Friday, and you don't talk to the participants between Monday and Friday, then you know what's going to end up happening. The odds are when you get to Friday, you're not going to have half as many solutions or recommendations as what you were expecting. You have to be able to follow up and inspect what you are expecting to be able to get those results. Now, I handed out to all of you this piece of paper. It's titled Meeting Outline. What this is for is this is to provide you an outline for basically conducting a meeting. The top of it has the presentation title. What's your meeting going to be about? Then you have spaces for time, date, location, a place for a brief description of the presentation. That's where you're going to basically let the other people who are attending the meeting know what the meeting or the reason you're having the meeting per se. Then you have agenda, and there's places for 5 different agenda items to be listed, and underneath each one of them is a space for purpose. That's an explanation of why that particular agenda item is of importance in that meeting. Down at the very bottom, you have a space to list the attendees. Remember, that list is not just for you, it's for the other members who are attending the meeting so that they have the same opportunity to be able to identify and become familiar with people who are attending as you are. Although some of you may consider these items basic, I encourage you to adopt them as habits, and if you do, you can watch the productivity of your meetings grow. Sounds corny? Yeah. But all presentations have to have a closing slide. This is what I chose for mine. Bottom line is that if you do and put into practice what we discussed here this afternoon, you will see success in your meetings, and you will end up with better results, more productive meetings, and save time in the meantime. Thank you. Have a good day.